Hello, I am Padma Mallikarjunan. I am an enterprise support manager at AWS and I'm based out of Austin, Texas. Welcome to AWS Supports You, where we share best practices and troubleshooting tips from AWS Support. Joining me today is Tony Sanchez, Sabrina Capriccio, and Rob Igareda from AWS. Can you give us a quick introduction? Let's start with you, Tony.
Hi, I'm Tony, and I am an AWS optimization specialist based in Madrid, Spain. My role, which happens to be also my passion and mission, is to enable AWS customers so they can manage and optimize their AWS spend in the most safe, sustainable, and efficient way.
Awesome. And hi, everyone. My name is Sabrina Caparuccio. I'm also an optimization specialist based out of Detroit, Michigan. And I support customers in understanding best practices for monitoring and optimizing spend on AWS. Happy to be here.
And I'm Rob Higrita. I'm an enterprise support lead and technical account manager located in Austin, Texas. And I help customers routinely work on their cost optimization as well, AWS. So interested here to share some information and insights with y'all.
Thank you for the introductions, everyone, and thanks for joining from across time zones. Everyone, today we will be introducing you to some ways to centralize your cost visibility in AWS. We will specifically focus on best practices to visualize billing and costs using AWS services. Before we get into the details, a quick note to our attendees online. Please use the chat window on the right-hand side of your screen to share your thoughts and ask your questions throughout the episode. We look forward to hearing from you. Tony, can you walk us through what we're going to be talking about today?
Absolutely. Thank you, Padma. And hello, everyone, and thank you for watching. So today we will cover the following topics. We'll first take a look at how to set your consolidated billing through AWS Organizations and how to create and allow users to see the organization's spend through Identity Access Management or IAM. My colleague Sabrina will then take the stage and drive you through the main features you can find in the AWS console to manage your costs, how to classify and tag costs to enable cost tracking, and finally, how to visualize your costs with AWS Cost Explorer. Over the next 3 AWS Support You episodes, we'll cover stages of the AWS Cloud Financial Management portfolio. Today's focus will be on C stage, where we'll review tools to deliver more actionable cost insights and optimization opportunities. Make sure to tune into our upcoming webinars, where we'll cover the remaining stages. So, without further ado, let's kick it off with AWS Organizations. Now, if you wonder how can AWS support you in the event you have to manage a large number of accounts in AWS, well, the answer is AWS Organizations. This service allows you to create an organization which will provide you the tools to centrally govern and manage your cloud environment, like easily create new or invite existing accounts, or manage costs and identify cost-saving measures for your whole organization. There is no cost for using AWS Organizations. You're just billed for the services you're running on your accounts. By creating an AWS organization, you enable the consolidated billing so that the charges from multiple accounts are rolled up into one simple bill for the paying account. Consolidated billing offers 4 primary benefits. It provides one bill. You get one bill for multiple accounts, making management of payments more efficient. It provides easy tracking of usage. You can track the charges across multiple accounts and download the combined cost and usage data. It provides volume discounts. As your service spend grows and you reach volume discount thresholds, unit costs begin to decrease, giving you a lower overall price whenever possible. And there's no extra fees. Consolidated billing is offered at no additional cost for you. Now, we have here our enterprise support lead, Rob, and I would like to ask you, Rob, do you receive any common questions on consolidated billing that you can share with us?
I'm sure. So we get a lot of questions just overall, like when customers are going to, if they'll be able to get all of their sub accounts, information, like you mentioned, by leveraging organizations that consolidated billing, it helps them get that single pane, like look into their overall organizational spend. So it's really handy for that. being able to see it just in one place, like you mentioned, and helps them to really get that better picture painted of what they're spending across accounts. So nice little feature to
Perfect.
have.
Perfect, thanks. Actually, Sabrina will also show the audience some of these features later in this session. So now that you have your AWS organization all set up and running, let's talk about access and permissions. Let's now assume you have a member of your finance team to whom you want to provide access so that person can retrieve bills, export cost and usage reports, or set up a budget alarm, whereas lack the ability to view or edit running resources. Well, you can actually use IAM to secure control access to AWS resources. You can create IAM identities and attach IAM policies to those identities to authorize what actions can be performed in AWS. When you first log in to your AWS account, you do that as a root user, which provides you full access to all resources in the account. For this reason, it is a best practice to limit the root user credentials just to the account owner and use an IAM user with appropriate permissions to perform tasks and access AWS resources. However, there are specific tasks that are restricted to the AWS account root user, such as closing the account, changing the email, account name or password, and modifying the support plan. For all the tasks, an IAM user should be used. Like we mentioned earlier, IAM users can be assigned AWS managed policies that determine access permissions. The administrator access policy grants you full access to services and resources, whereas a billing access policy provides you a read-only capability of billing information. Let's recap them. How can we delegate access to billing data? As a prerequisite to delegate access to billing data, first you have to have an IAM user created, and it has to be part of an IAM user group, as we will show you in the demo in just a minute. Other than that, there are 4 simple steps. Step 1, activate IAM access to billing data. If you create a single AWS account, only the AWS account owner, the AWS account root user, has access to view and manage billing information. IAM users cannot access billing data until the root user activates IAM access and also attaches policies that provide billing actions to the user or role. If you create a member account using AWS Organizations, this feature is enabled by default. Step 2, create an IAM policy that grants permissions to billing data. After enabling billing access on your account, you must still explicitly grant access to billing data to specific IAM users or user groups. You can grant this access with an existing AWS managed policy or create a customer managed policy. Step 3, attach billing policy to IAM user group. When you attach a policy to a user group, all members of that user group receive the complete set of access permissions that are associated with that policy. In this scenario, you attach the new billing policies to user groups containing only those users who require the billing access. And step 4, test access to the billing console. After you've completed the core tasks, you're ready to test the policy. Testing ensures that the policy works the way you want it to. Okay, so with this conclude the first part of the presentation, but before we jump on to a demo, Padma, are there any questions from the audience?
Hi, Tony. Thank you for the presentation. Yes, we do have one question from the audience. Thank you for your question, Ray underscore DB222. The question here is, will this presentation cover the JSON editor, how to use it, and when?
I can take that one. Welcome back, Ray DB282. So we won't be covering in detail the JSON editor. That falls a little bit more into some of the IAM policies themselves creation. But if you're wondering when to use the actual JSON editor, it's when you really want to analyze and look at the details of something maybe that someone created with the visual editor. If you're like me, I like the nice visual editor in IAM so that I can easily click and you say like, I'm going to delegate S3 access to this thing or a specific, IAM policy to it. I like the nice clicking point. But if you want to go through and review what the policy actually looks like, that would be a good chance when you'd actually use the JSON editor itself to be able to go back and like review what your policy actually looks like.
Okay, thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Rob. And thank you, Padma. So as we discussed, we're gonna show a demo of how to actually implement all these changes that we just and actions that we just described. So I'm in my aws.com and I'm going to access to the AWS console. Remember, the first time you access, you will do that as a root user because you just created your account. Let's type here the characters and our password and let's sign in. Perfect. So now we are in the console and we're going to head up to AWS Organizations. We can do that by recently visited services, just by checking all services, or we can use the search tool and just type organizations. It will be there. Okay, we're going to head to organizations. And as we land here, we can see that first option we have, pretty clear, create an organization. So we're going to go ahead and create our first organization. Once the organization is created, our root account, or not the payer account, the account that we use to create the organization becomes the management account of the whole organization. As you can see here, you can see the organizational structure. As you create or invite accounts, they will show up in this structure and you can organize them as you wish. So we're gonna show you how to add an AWS account. For that, we just click on add an AWS account and we'll see that there's two options. You can create an AWS account from scratch. For that, you need to give it a name. You have to give it an email address that will become the root user of that account that you create. And you just simply create account. The other way is you're going to invite an existing account. For that, you need either the root user of that existing account, so the email associated with that account, or the 12-digit number of the account. You can include your message, as they will receive an email notifying that you want to invite them to your organization. And once you are done, you can click on send invitation. Good. So let's now head to the IAM service, or Identity Access Management. You can search in the tool, IAM. Here we are. And once you land here, you'll see that you have different, in the navigation panel, you have these different options. You have user groups, users, roles, and policies. So for the sake of simplicity, let me zoom this in a little bit so you can see better. Again, these are the options that you have. What we're going to do now, we're going to start with creating a group. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to create that group, and for sake of being simple as well, let's name it AWS Billing Group. Remember, in this group, we're going to add the users that will only have access to the billing information. Right now, we don't have any users, so don't worry. The next step will be to create those users and attach it to this group. Now we're going to search for the policy that we want to apply to this group, user group, and this is going to be billing, which will provide them with the access that they require to perform all the tasks related to billing. Now that we have our group, let's go ahead and create those users. This new user can be a name or an email. So we can call it Paul, or we can call it just Paul at yourcompany.com, or whatever is your company. Now remember that if you create a user and you provided an email address, does not mean that we're going to send them any information. It's just for purposes of logging in into the AWS account. So let's keep it simple. Let's call it Paul. Let's give him some programmatic access. And let's provide him a custom password. Make sure that they don't have to reset the password afterwards. And let's go with the permissions. Now, this is the part where we can provide the permissions to the users. There's three ways of doing this. And because we already created a group with the right permissions, we're just going to add this user to the existing group. So we're going to provide them the task of add Paul to the AWS billing group. Now that we have Paul created, let's review the tasks. We're going to add it to that group. That's exactly what we want. And let's do that. Okay, before we test this new IAM user, let's remember, as we explained in the presentation, that we need to go into our account, so into my account section, down to the IAM user and role access to the information, and we need to make sure that it's activated. If it's not, remember, by default it will not unless it's created the account through AWS Organizations. Fair enough. Let's copy the account number, let's sign out, and let's test this IAM user. So we're going to log again, but this time, instead of using the root user, let's use the IAM user. Let's put out 12-digit AWS ID. Here we go. Let's write the IAM username, which was Paul, and the password that we provided. Let's sign in, and fair enough, as you will see, if everything goes well, let's head to the billing console, and let's see if we have access. And indeed, as you can see, we have all the access that this IAM user needs. So with that, concludes the demo. Padma, back to you.
Thank you for that demo, Tony. I'm looking at the screen here. We don't have any audience questions. Everyone, please feel free to post your questions over here. I do have a question for you, though. Can you talk about whether we can apply IAM policies to an AWS organizational unit?
And I can take that one. So yeah, essentially, so we have a different construct that we call a service control policy or an SCP. That starts with an openly permissive, basically kind of not blocking everything kind of way to work through when you kind of set it so people can do whatever they need in the account. But with the benefit of an SCP is you can apply that at an organization level or at your OU level for an organizational unit under your main org, and allow you to give kind of granular access to control and limit access to services or regions and such. So very handy additional construct that's available in the organization's feature set rather than just having the consolidated billing. There's quite a bit more that you can do too.
Got it. Thank you, Rob. And back to you.
All yours, Sabrina.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Padma and Rob. Hi, everyone. So next up, I'd like to cover the AWS Billing and Cost Management Dashboard. So the AWS Billing and Cost Management Dashboard is the service for paying bills, monitoring usage, and analyzing and controlling costs. You can take a look at the breakdown for past and current bills, apply credits, modify purchase orders, all of which I'll go through in our demonstration after. And the menu on the left-hand side contains several sections that can be grouped into 3 different topics. So we have billing, cost management, and preferences. And each section will be helpful as you navigate through your cloud journey. 3 sections I'd like to take a deeper look at next are cost allocation tags, cost categories, and Cost Explorer. But before we move on, Rob, is there anything you'd like to add? Common things you're seeing customers doing on this page?
Yeah, so one of the other elements on this page on the left there is our cost and usage reports. So if you're not using cost and usage reports, they're really handy to be able to generate really detailed information about your AWS spend. And so if you've seen your bill in Cost Explorer, you can see quite a bit of information. But if you wanted to find resource level like information about an EC2 instance and how much data it's sent out to another region or to the internet, cost and usage reports can really help you dig into that. So I always like to call it out here because it's a really detailed feature that's available to your AWS billing.
Absolutely. And if you are interested in learning more about the cost and usage reports, we are holding another webinar in 2 weeks. So that's Monday, October 18th, titled Monitoring Your Cost Management Health. So if you are interested in learning a bit more about what Rob mentioned, we will be reviewing that in a bit closer detail 2 weeks from now. Great. So moving on to cost allocation tags. So a tag is a label that you or AWS assigns to an AWS resource. Each tag consists of a key and an optional value, and a key can have more than one value. You can use tags to organize your resources and activate specific tags for cost allocation to track your AWS costs on a detailed level. After you activate cost allocation tags, AWS uses those tags to organize your resource costs to make it easier for you to categorize and track spend. AWS provides two different types of cost allocation tags. So there's AWS generated tags and then user defined tags. AWS will define, create, and apply the AWS generated tags for you, whereas you would be the one to define, create, and apply the user defined tags. You must activate both types of tags separately before they can appear in any sort of like report or cost explorer. Common cost allocation tags include tags for a specific application, project, cost center, or user. Now that we've covered cost allocation tags, let's take a closer look at cost categories. So you can use AWS cost categories to map your cost and usage information to your unique internal business structures. AWS cost categories enable users to define category rules to group costs using multiple billing dimensions, such as accounts, services, and tags. For example, if you wanted to track spend for an application across development and production environments, you could group those AWS accounts into a single cost category. After defining category rules, the system will organize your costs starting at the beginning of the month. If you create or update your cost category in the middle of the month, it retroactively takes effect on cost and usage from the beginning of the month. You can visualize and monitor spend by viewing these categories in AWS Cost Explorer, which we'll take a look at now. But before we do so, Rob, can you shed some light on the benefits of creating cost categories based on your experience with customers?
Yeah, thanks, Sabrina. So yeah, definitely being able to tag. I always tell customers tag all the things that they can, because being able to build something like a chargeback model for your organization, because you have everything consolidated into your one bill. If you want to be able to build and shed some transparency and light into a specific workload and how it's consuming your costs, if you can leverage these tags and cost categories, it will really help you to do so. So that you can say, decide specifically what account or what workload is taking up a majority of your spend in a month. So if you want to start building that chargeback model to make sure that they forecast their budgets appropriately, we'll cover some other features. I think in one of the future shows about like setting up budgets and tagging can help with that. So having these different items in there is really what helps my customers be able to get that detailed granularity and visibility that they need to really, help manage their AWS spend.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rob. So moving on now to Cost Explorer. So AWS Cost Explorer has an easy-to-use interface that lets you to visualize, understand, and manage your AWS costs and usage over time. So Cost Explorer provides pre-configured views that display at-a-glance information about your cost trends and give you a head start on customizing views that suit your needs. You can view data both in a graph and a chart for up to the last 12 months and also forecast how much you're likely to spend for the next 3 or 12 months. You can use Cost Explorer to identify areas that need further inquiry and see trends that you can use to understand your costs. In Cost Explorer, you have the ability to group and filter data, change the time range and granularity, and even save reports. Now that we've covered the billing and cost management dashboard, cost allocation tags, cost categories, and Cost Explorer, I'd like to run through a demo of how those different offerings would look in the console. But before we do that, Rob, is there anything on your end you'd like to add?
I think you'll see, as Sabrina gets into showing some things in Cost Explorer, there's a lot to it. A lot of different filters that you can apply, a lot of different ways that you can kind of get a different visualization. And if you have enterprise support, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to your technical account manager because they'd be happy to walk you through some of the common ways that we analyze spend using Cost Explorer, because it is a tool that we use a lot to also help get some visibility into our customer spend. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out to your TAM to get some assistance on some of our kind of common filters that we use. Thanks, Sabrina.
Thank you. And Padma, is there anything before we move on? Questions from the audience?
There is one question from the audience that just came in. Thank you for your question, Rella Sheji. Can you talk about the differences between what you presented right now on the Cost Explorer and how it is different from AWS budgets?
I can take that one as well. So slight difference between the two of them, right? Cost Explorer is going to be your way to visualize live spend within your account that you can use, and budgets are going to help you to, say, build reports that you can leverage within your teams to understand cost, set up budget alerts, and I think we have an episode that's going to cover that a lot more in depth as well coming up. But overall, we've got a plethora, I'll say, of different features that you can leverage within budgets to give you insights, notifications, say, on forecasting for your, say, growth on an EC2. If you anticipated like 3% growth per month, you could put that in and then get different alerts on it. So it's very helpful, but different because it's more of a reporting mechanism than necessarily a live view of your spend.
Got it. Thank you, Rob. And that's all the questions from the audience. Back to you, Sabrina.
Awesome. Thank you. So with that, we can jump into a demo showcasing those different offerings I mentioned in the second half of the presentation.
Yeah, let's give it a minute. It's loading, right?
Yep.
Okay. In the meantime, feel free to post your questions, everyone. We have our experts, Tony, Sabrina, and Rob, to answer those as well. And as far as the episodes that are coming up, I will be sure to post the landing page so you can follow and you know what our future episodes are and you can join them.
Okay, let's.
So while we are waiting
Nope,
for
pulling up.
Sabrina to bring up the demo, Rob, can you cover a little bit about, we talked about AWS builds, right? There are several ways to receive the AWS builds. Can you talk a little bit about how can we get the bill emailed to us?
Yeah, absolutely. So by default, when you set up the actual AWS account and you have your billing, it's just going to go to that root email address for your account. But say you wanted to have it also additionally sent to like your finance team that's going to actually take care of some of the bill. You can go through and actually leverage alternate contacts within it. And when you set up an alternate contact, you can have it enabled so that it will send a PDF email to that distribution list as well. And that way you can actually get your AWS monthly bill to you to be able to, easily be able to send it to, like I said, your finance team, or for you to digest it yourself in that PDF format. So.
Got it. Thank you so much for that, Rob.
Yeah.
Sabrina?
Great. Awesome. So we have the AWS Management Console here. So to walk through, we're just going to go to the search bar and type in billing. You'll just select the first option there. That'll take you to the billing and cost management dashboard. So you can see that panel on the left-hand side that I mentioned. We'll start by going to the bills section on the left. And you can see here, there are a couple different ways to view your bill, but to start, we'll do the drop down. You can select the current month's bill or a prior month. Then with that, there are two different views. So there's bill details by service or bill details by account. And the bill details by service is going to show a breakdown of every AWS service that is running. So if you wanted to see the charge there, you could click into it. We'll look at the EC2 here, click into the region. And with that, you'll see the rate for the service, then the quantity, and then multiplied together is going to give you the charge on your bill. There is an expand all button. So if you wanted to click that, all that's going to do is it's going to click on the drop downs for all the different services and all the regions running. So next we'll take a look at bill details by account. So this is for if you had set up, AWS Organizations, you had more than one account and you wanted to see what the bill was for that specific account, you would go to bill details by account. And then once you click into the account, it's going to do the same thing as the bill details by service. It'll have the list of the different services, which you can click into. So use the drop-down, select the region, and then you'll see the rate, quantity, and charge. So with that, we'll move on to payments. So the payments section has 4 different tabs at the top. Payments due is where you'll have anything, any current bills that are due. Unapplied funds is when you would see if you had any credit memos or funds to be applied, they would be shown here. Transactions is going to be a really important tab to view if you wanted to take a look at prior statements. So you can see here if we scroll down and to the right here, you'll see the amount per billing period, and you can actually click in and download the specific prior invoices if you'd like. Moving on to advance pay. So this is an optional field, but if you wanted to add funds to be allocated to future invoices, you would register and apply the funds here. Moving on to credits. So if you had any credits from AWS, you wanted to apply the credit code, you would redeem the credit either at the button at the bottom, right there, or at the upper right, just clicking into redeem credit. And then taking a look at purchase orders. So if you had a specific PO number, purchase order number that you wanted on your invoice, you could just add the purchase order there. And you can see in this account, I have a couple that are active and also one that's expired. So purchase orders do have an optional expiration date. So if you wanted a PO number to end at a certain time, you can specify that here as well. So moving on, next topic I covered was cost allocation tags. So we'll just click into that on the left. And here you can see there are user-defined cost allocation tags and AWS-generated cost allocation tags. And with both types of tags, they need to be activated. So to activate, you would select the checkbox and click Activate. And same thing, if you had active tags that you no longer wish to use, you would just select them and then click Deactivate. And then same exact process for AWS generated, just select what you wanted to either activate or deactivate, and then click the box in the upper right-hand side. So that's how cost allocation tags work. Moving on here to cost categories. So to create a cost category, you would just select the Create Cost Category orange button. You would name your cost category. We'll just call this one Webinar for example's sake. And then you'll click Next. This is where you would define category rules. So adding the different characteristics here, adding the dimensions, adding the rules, everything that you wanted in terms of characteristics for the cost category. You would just enter the information on this page and then scroll to the bottom and just hit next. I'll cancel it for right now, but that's how you would go ahead and create the cost category. And then the last piece I touched on was Cost Explorer. So same page, we're just going to go to the left-hand side here and click Cost Explorer. And then you're going to select the orange button to launch Cost Explorer. Now, if this is the first time that you have accessed or tried accessing Cost Explorer, it is going to take about 24 hours just to have all that information and data propagate through the system. So just be aware of that. And then once you're here, we're going to go back into Cost Explorer on the left. Click there. And then this is where you can see that Cost Explorer page. So you can see here, there's the group by section at the top, and that's going to break down the information. And then we also have the filter area on the right that's going to limit the information that's in view. So you can see you have the graph here at the top showing spend month over month. And then you have the chart at the bottom that contains the spend that's associated with the usage and also the graph at the top. So scrolling back up here, you can use the drop down here to specify a certain time period. So if you wanted, you could use the auto select option. If you wanted, 3 months, 6 months, something that's already pre-configured for a time frame, or you can select a specific custom time frame and hit apply. Perfect. So now here you can see we can change the granularity. So right now we were looking at monthly, and we can change that to daily to see what it would look like for that week, each day in terms of spend. Awesome. And then scroll down, you can see the different services because that's what we're grouped by. I'm going to cancel that by clicking the X here. And here you can see this is just the spend each day. And then now if I go in and add a filter, EC2, for example, we'll just type it in, click the checkbox and hit apply. Now this is going to show every day the EC2 instance spend. It's going to limit your view to just seeing EC2. You can see it's roughly $3.50 per day. Now I can go in and actually select group by instance type. So now we have over the past week, we have the filter by instance type, and then the filter by service EC2 instance, and then we have the group by for instance type. So you can use both filters and group bys in order to kind of narrow down the information to your specific view. You can see that information there. You can see, each instance, how much the charges are for that specific day, and that's all also in that chart below. So one thing you can do as well is the save button in the upper left. If you liked a specific view, you had the filters, group bys that you liked, you could title the report and then hit save, and then it'll be available to view later in that report section on the left. Yep, and then finally, last piece I'd like to touch on is that we do have a show forecasted value section in the lower right-hand side of the screen. So that's selected right now. So now if I go on up and I select a different time frame, something in the future, farther out than the current day, and then hit apply, you'll get a pop-up box. You'll just select OK for that. And all that's saying is that now it's taking a look at the spend in the past, and it's making a estimated forecast for what your spend would be in the future. So another neat feature, part of Cost Explorer, if you're looking to get an estimation on forecasted spend in your account. So with that concludes our demo. We can, I guess we'll pause. If there's anything, Rob, you'd like to add, or Padma, questions from viewers, we can take a look at that now.
We don't have any questions from the viewers. So everyone, please feel free to post questions here for us. Back to you, Sabrina.
Perfect. Thank you, Padma.
Just a sec.
Can add as we're like going back to the deck itself, what Sabrina was showing in that Cost Explorer view. She had that great filter that shows by per instance type. That view there is really helpful for multiple things. You can do it for EC2 and RDS instances and see the instance type. So if you're going to leverage things like reserved instances or savings plans, and you want to get an idea, like if you're doing an EC2 like savings plan, you can actually use that to see exactly where your usage is on what you're going to make purchases. So it's a helpful way to view and see some additional insights and information if you're trying to plan out what you're going to do for reserved instances or savings plans as well. Over to you, Tom.
Great point. Thanks, Rob. Awesome. So moving on, finally, we have put together a checklist with best practices to follow based on the topics that were mentioned throughout this webinar. So first up, some actions based on the topics that Tony covered would be to set up consolidated billing by creating that AWS organization, activating IAM access to billing and the cost management console, creating user groups and then attaching billing policies for those, And then finally, creating IAM users to then add into the IAM user group for billing. And then moving on to my half of the presentation that I had just covered, some recommended best practices would be to activate tags for cost allocation, and then create cost categories to customize spend tracking. Go ahead and enable Cost Explorer, so that way you can be able to visualize your costs, go in and use different group bys or filters to create views that really support you in understanding your bill and your charges. And then finally, just creating a report, saving it, getting some practice there would be a recommended best practice. So with that, just want to say thank you so much for attending our webinar on establishing your centralized cost visibility. We hope you found this to be helpful. And if you have any additional questions or would like to set up time with your specific optimization specialist to, talk through any of these topics in greater detail or answer any questions you may have, feel free to email AWS Supports You at Amazon.com. And also just wanted to put a reminder out there that we do have our next session 1 week from today. So that's Monday, October 11th. And in that session, we will review how to minimize your storage and compute costs. So if you're interested, feel free to tune in. And thanks again. Padma, back to you.
Thank you, Sabrina. That brings us to the end of today's presentation. So before we go, Rob, anything else you want to add?
I know. So primarily, we covered a lot of different great information on Cost Explorer, the cost categories, and everything. And really just recommend, like said before, tag those resources so that you can get this additional granularity to your visibility. So you can build out those cost categories and then have different ways to view things. One other thing we didn't cover in Cost Explorer is we showed the chart that was down below there. But that chart, if you saw, there was a download CSV button. So if you're a spreadsheet junkie and you like to look at spreadsheets and data and be able to manipulate it in your own way, you can actually download that CSV of whatever you filter by, so that you can add and create your own charts if you want to as well. So there's some additional things that are kind of there. So I mentioned before, if you have questions, you can definitely reach out to your TAM because we can help out with getting you there and also bringing some of the cost optimization specialists like Sabrina and Tony as well to help.
All right. Thank you. So everyone, today we looked at best practices to visualize billing and costs using AWS services. If there are questions that were not answered today, you can post them on forums.aws.amazon.com or email us. Send us any feedback to awssupportsyou@amazon.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Tell us what else you would like to see on this show. Thank you for joining us today at AWS Supports You, and happy cloud computing.
Thank you.
Cloud computing all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.